now being sold one of the most blatant lies, at least of modern times, and probably more than that. The greenhouse effect. Oh, it doesn't let heat out, so the planet warms, and it's the greenhouse gases, and it's carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide has become the enemy, the villain. Without carbon dioxide, first of all, in the greenhouse effect, the planet would be too cold for any life, and nothing would bloody grow without carbon dioxide, and we've turned it into the great bloody evil. And the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in relationship to other greenhouse gases is fractional, and the amount produced by human technology is a tiny, tiny fraction of that fraction. The idea that it's changing the climate of the planet is insane.
Mr. President, I find it encouraging that you are proposing an initiative for reducing air pollution.
We have obtained a report from a Jesuit-trained insider in which he reveals the steps in which the policies in Laudato Si will be enforced. He states that the policies of Laudato Si will come in a similar manner as how the same-sex marriage law came to America, of course, in the year 2014.
Accepting the urgency, it seems clear to me also that climate change is a problem we can no longer be left to a future generation.
But today, here at the Vatican, the two began with a friendly handshake. The Pope gave the President a copy of his encyclical, where he makes a passionate case to fight climate change.
I'll be reading them.
At meetings today, the Vatican urged the President not to drop out of the Paris Accord on climate change, and the President promised to consider the Pope's request. And right before he left the Vatican, a sign the President may have been moved by what he heard.
What I thought was really fascinating about Donald Trump's meeting with the Pope, for starters, was the outfits that were being worn by his wife and his daughter, who looked like they just came from either a black mass, wink wink, or a funeral as they meet with the Pope. Now we see the esoteric colors. Donald Trump's also wearing a black suit, along with them wearing black, and the Pope, of course, in white. So you have the esoteric black and white symbolism. Not a surprise, but I'm sure some type of satanic ritual went on behind the scenes with the Pope, with these people. Now, some of what they talked about in the meeting, which was disclosed, was that the Pope was talking about global warming. And we've seen that recently with the Pope meeting with Leonardo DiCaprio, who's apparently a face for global warming these days. Global warming is part of their depopulation agenda, as well as taxing people for oxygen or for air. It's absolutely ludicrous that people are buying into this stuff. All they got to do is look up to the skies and see the chemtrails, realize what they're doing, realize what their agenda really is here, which is depopulation, Agenda 2030. So not only does Donald Trump meet with the Pope and talk about global warming, which is something Trump has said he doesn't believe in. We'll see if he turns the tables on that and flips the switch because of his meeting with the Pope.
We condemn all crimes against people of faith, and today we are launching another historic action to promote religious freedom. I will soon be signing an executive order to create a faith initiative at the White House. The Faith Initiative will help design new policies that recognize the vital role of faith in our families, our communities, and our great country. Our country was founded on prayer. Our communities are sustained by prayer, and our nation will be renewed by hard work, a lot of intelligence, and prayer.
Let me ask you a question. Would you support a law that mandated that all factories and businesses and shopping centers and things like that be closed one day a week to reduce greenhouse gases around the world?
I think I would have to know more of the details of it, but that certainly sounds like a good idea to me. I'm in favor of reducing climate change. So,
would you feel comfortable that it would be that a law would be put in place making it the law of the land that this was mandatory?
Would I feel comfortable? I guess, yeah. If it's going to help the climate change, then yeah, of course I'd be open.
Yeah, I think that some monetary penalty might be useful to enforce that.
So if the Pope pushed for a one day of the week, Sunday, to have a mandatory closure, would you be in support of that?
On a Sunday? Sure, most businesses are closed anyway on a Sunday, so that would be the natural day that you would target if you were going to go down that path.
Now, if the thought was put out there that one day a week would be selected to let the land rest or let the environment rest, which is in the Pope's encyclical, what day of the week do you think that would be?
I would hope for Sunday.
If you were going to pick a day when everything would have to be closed to lower greenhouse emissions, what day would it be?
Sunday.
A 1 day a week of rest for the environment, what day do you think would be chosen?
Well, I think the natural choice would probably be Sunday.
Now, why did I call this the climate of extremes? Very simple. In Washington, as you know, we polarize issues. In the issue of global warming, it seems either you are on the talk show line in the afternoon and you say there is no such thing as climate change, or you say it's the end of the world. And I'd like to begin on May 22nd, 2007, the Larry King Show. One exchange that lasted only a mere few minutes contained an incredible number of unfactual statements in it. It's between the vice president. An unidentified woman calls and says, Vice President Gore, what issues caused by climate change globally are likely to affect the United States in the next 10 years? Vice President responds, the direct impacts on the U.S. have already begun. Today, 49% of America is in conditions of drought or near drought. So the implication is that global warming is increasing drought in the United States. Fine. This statement went completely unchallenged. How hard is it to check? It turns out it's 6 mouse clicks away. On the upper graph here is the percent of the United States experiencing drought conditions. This is something called the Palmer Drought Severity Index. And on the bottom are the Northern Hemisphere temperature departures from average from the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. What you see here, if you look on the y-axis, here's the 49% that Gore was talking about. Now, is there any relationship between this and global warming? You don't have to waste your time running Excel on this, because the correlation is obviously zero. Simple fact, not checked. Or we could look at longer-term climate history of the Pacific Southwest, which is one of the places we really care about drought. The Energy Secretary, Mr. Su, who has a Nobel Prize in particle physics, which really is somewhat not related to climatology, said recently that global warming will destroy agriculture in California and cause the loss of the major cities in California. This is absurd. But the reason he said that is because of stories about major drought in the Pacific Southwest and the Colorado River system. And in fact, if we take a look at the history of Colorado River stream flow as measured by tree rings and other kinds of fossils, this is by Dave Miko in 2007. Here's the more recent drought, and you can see that it is nothing compared to what we have seen. That's lowest in the current drought. Nothing compared to what we saw here in the 12th century. This thing lasted 60 years. So to say that there's any signal of warming in this record, which would begin somewhere around 1900, is absurd.
Well, climate has always been changing, but this has nothing to do with man. In fact, we predicted that there would be extreme heat in East Europe and Russia this summer. And it's caused by a certain circulation pattern. CO2 does not cause circulation patterns. What causes those is a combination of solar activity and the state of the phases of the moon. You see, a very similar situation happened about 132 years ago, where there was the same sun, earth, lunar, magnetic states. There was heat waves in Russia, and there were also floods in Pakistan as now. So these things are dictated by solar activity in the moon. They're nothing to do with mankind, and those who say that are just trying to make money out of it.
Well, how come then so many climate change scientists disagree with you and they get so much support for what they say?
They're on a gravy train, for heaven's sake. There's trillions of pounds traded every year on carbon trading and doing silly things like building windmills, which will achieve nothing. I mean, there's money in it, and that has corrupted science.
Well, Ted, you talk too much, and you're in front of a camera too often, and they don't like that. You know, when I first met you 30 years or so ago, you came in to see my mother. I didn't trust you. I said you were the FBI, and I was calling the FBI because I knew that things were going on. Is the agency today what it was 40 years ago?
The FBI today is not the agency it was 40 years ago. And I'm convinced that the FBI today has been infiltrated by the Illuminati, as has the CIA, as has military intelligence, as has NSA, and I think our government's being run by the Illuminati, to be honest with you.
Well, the CIA has been often called the enforcement arm of the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations, at 58 East 68th Street in New York City. It's the Rockefeller Bund, the Cassius cartel that owns the Federal Reserve. They are involved with the Bank of England. We're seeing the major operation coming from London and from New York City and Washington. Do you think that these craft are military? Is this done by, do you think Leon Panetta is flying out the military, or is this private contractors, possibly through Evergreen Air, that would be putting these dispersants upon us?
Well, I believe, since you have the Lincoln, Nebraska Air National Guard involved, I would say it's government. I don't think it's private contractors, but I don't know.
Well, we got a different opinion here, but there are those who are watching this show right now who know there are pilots that would like to come forth, but we find out that there are some people who are coming forth in private. They're telling us at this base up here in Oregon. There's a woman who was at a bar, and she was talking to some of the guys, and they were bragging about dropping this stuff all over the people of the planet. What is the mentality of somebody like that? Are they like the guards at Auschwitz and Dachau?
I would guess the mentality of these people who are doing this, there could be mind control victims, or I would say the military, and they do what they're told. But the thing that bothers me is, don't these pilots know that they're putting death dump on their own families? Okay? That would bother me if I was doing this and dumping this poison on my own family. And I don't understand it. I can't understand it. I can't explain it either.
In the 20th century, clouds were seeded by numerous countries around the globe with various chemicals to produce rain. China was just doing this over the summer in Beijing to make sure that there weren't any rain, that there wasn't any rain during the Olympics. But all this has changed dramatically with the U.S. military's secretive research and plans to control the planet's natural weather.
It lays the predicate and the foundation for the development of a weather satellite that will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer and ultimately to control the weather, and he who controls the weather will control the world. That will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer, and he who controls the weather will control the world.
This has not been given very much press, and we have to remember that we have a corporate-owned press where 85% of radio, television, and print media is owned by 5 corporations. So they're not going to talk about things that are of really serious consequence, and that's somewhat of the blessing, a mixed blessing of the internet, but there's certainly plenty of information on weather modification.
Could you please tell us what kind of message, what you are doing here today, what kind of message would you send by doing this to world leaders? And also can I ask you, do you think it's about time that President Trump would respond to what you have said today?
I think... I'm sorry, what was the first question?
What's the message you would like to
send
to our leaders
by
doing what you are doing?
I think what we want to send is, the message we want to send is to say that we have had enough. And anyone else wants to answer that question? I can't speak on behalf of everyone.